Hello everybody, this is a bit of nonsense in November, and as I'm writing this material for this blog and this newsletter, it's the 11th of November and all over the world people are commemorating the sacrifices made by men and women to secure peace. In 1918, just over 100 years ago, the world wanted peace. Yet just over 20 years later, they were at war again. It is interesting that the planetary alignments now are very similar to the ones that we experienced in the early 30s prior to World War II. What's happening now? Vilmarie and I have been discussing QR codes as we are more frequently requested to use them. What the earth is a QR code? Many of you will have encountered them and just done what you've been asked to do, but what are they? What are they meant to be used for? And more importantly, what information can they gather without our consent? If you haven't encountered these little square icons, then there's a little bit of information. I'll help you understand them. Now, just like the frog in the well, we can think of our world as a well. What happens when we find that the well that we thought was our world is actually just a small part of a much bigger scenario? Laura Eisenhower is providing much information about our place in the galaxy. Are we at some level pawns in a galactic war? Let's look at some evidence to suggest that we may well be playthings for ETs. Another level up from the conspiracy theory, and I know you don't all subscribe to that. Let's have a look. Let's ask questions. We take a brief look again at the 13th sign of the zodiac. I think I might have written about it once before, because I didn't really think I thought it was a load of nonsense. But the more I research, I find that perhaps Ophiuchus, the 13th sign, requires a little bit more respect. We are looking forward also to the Summer Solstice on the 21st of December here in Australia and in the Southern Hemisphere. Apart from the celebration of the sun, it is also the initiation this year of the age of Aquarius, as Saturn and Jupiter join together at 0 degrees Aquarius to travel through the sign of Aquarius. The heavy restrictive energy of Saturn that we've been experiencing will change. What can we do to protect ourselves? How useful is it to be frightened or anxious? Some things are beyond our control. What we can control is how to take care of ourselves with proper breathing, appropriate nutrition, exercise, and sleep. Let's get on with this. Let's talk about the planetary patterns. On Remembrance Day, all over the Western world, people commemorated the sacrifices made by men and women to secure peace. And as I mentioned earlier, the planetary positions then are very similar to what they are now. It's scary for me to think that many of us face situations that were faced by those in Europe last century, when many found their freedoms vanish overnight. Many innocent folk even lost their lives. As I reflect on what we have experienced in Australia this year, I am really questioning how free we really are. Are we being surreptitiously taken over by agencies who do not have our interests paramount? Back in the 30s, Pluto was in Cancer, being squared by Uranus in Aries, setting the scene for conflicts and disagreements on a large scale. And then as Uranus moved into Taurus, Mars came on the scene in Aries, squaring Pluto and fomenting more dissent, and World War II was on. In recent times, Uranus has also been in Aries, conflicting with Pluto in Capricorn, which is the opposite sign to Cancer, and setting the scene for disagreements and conflict. And how much have we had over the last couple of years with that? Right now, we have Mars in Aries again, accompanied by his sister Eris, so there's double trouble here, stirring up more dissent, especially against entrenched power. If you don't believe me, simply observe what is going on around us globally. So what are we personally experiencing here in Oz? Our boundaries have been clearly drawn by external agents. We can only travel so far. For some of us, it's been, you can only go 5 kilometers from home. For me, it's been, I haven't been able to cross the border to go into New South Wales unless I get a permit and then I wait to come in because I've got to be checked. It's too much bother. And we certainly, none of us have been able to travel internationally. And in many cases, we've been required to wear masks. A controversial requirement for many, including me. We have lost our freedoms. How quickly were they taken from us? Have we been too apathetic, too comfortable to really value our sovereignty? How many of us are actually involved in the political process? How much of our power have we just given away? I don't know about you, but I thought we lived in a democracy, government for the people, by the people. Clearly, that is not the case this year. How do we regain people power? Or is it too late? Now, I promised we'd speak about QR codes, and this QR stands for a quick response. And it was a type of matrix barcode first designed in 1994 in Japan in the automotive industry. And it's basically a read-only image, machine scannable image that can be instantly read using a smartphone camera. Every QR code consists of a number of black squares and dots which represent certain pieces of information. They can be used to link a mobile device to the like button on your Facebook page, or to send users directly to your Twitter, LinkedIn, or website. Let me see if I can show you what this is. Can you see a QR code there? It actually takes you to my website. Now, if you were to check on my website or even my Facebook page, I provide you with a link to an article about how to protect yourself from misuse of the information of this QR code. Just like any other information on the internet, you have to be careful. What is it? You don't scan QR codes, you don't really have no idea where they're coming from and where they're going to take you. Anyway, read this article and it'll help you. But these codes are being used quite regularly around us to allow us access to restaurants and other places. And in most cases, they are not suspicious. But be careful. Moving on to galactic history. Because I've had time on my hands, I guess a number of you have too, you know, I've busied myself with, you know, needle and thread up in knitting or stitching in some other ways, and listening to some very interesting information on YouTube. Laura Eisenhower, great-granddaughter of President Dwight Eisenhower, has some fascinating information to impart. She seems to have had so much knowledge that she speaks at 1,000,000 miles an hour in order to share it all. And so it is very hard to take it all in at once. Anyway, check out her website if you're interested in more information. She has a range of thought-provoking information. You may think what she's talking is a load of codswallop. That's okay. What I'm encouraging you to do is to be open to other ideas. Laura talks about interplanetary wars and the way in which interplanetary beings, ETs, have from time to time come to Earth and influenced our civilizations. She also suggests that there's been a deliberate effort to erase or hide stories of our Earth history. Do we ever get taught history in school that goes beyond Egypt? Or perhaps the Bible, which is, not in terms of Earth history, not that long ago. What have we been taught about Atlantis, Lemuria, Tara, Tiamat? I question, whom does it serve if we are kept in the dark about our planetary origins? Now, while I'm researching this, there are a number of questions that I believe still can be put. What if, just what if, this current global situation is actually a galactic crisis? What if we are but puppets in a giant interplanetary war? Just like we treat rats in a laboratory as experimental beings. What if some beings out there are controlling our minds? Really? How much free will do we really have? What do you think? Are we subject to mind control? Understand that there are very subtle ways in which this can operate. Chemical sprays in the air can alter our energy and brain function, as can electromagnetic fields, cleverly placed where we do not notice their presence. How is your mind? Would you know if you were mind controlled? It's much easier to achieve mind control when people are all wearing masks and unable to breathe in fresh oxygen. Now, it's not my intention to make you anxious. The question is about your awareness. Some things are beyond our control. We cannot control what's out there in the galaxy. But what can you do to feel safe? At the very least, we have control over our attitudes. I believe that conducting our lives in the best way we know how, treating others the way we'd like to be treated, is what we can do. Our mental and spiritual energy is much more powerful than we've been led to believe. So pray, meditate, or connect in whatever way works for you with your spiritual self. See yourself as a light being and attracting light. Light drives away the darkness. Ensure that your space at home is a real haven. Fill it with light, with plants, my lovely happy plant here, essential oils, nice sound, healing music, soft cushions, whatever makes you feel safe and comfortable. Because if you feel good, you put out good energy. From an astrological perspective, we are experiencing a global reset. It's not called the Great Awakening for nothing. The planet of transformation, Pluto, is in Capricorn, destroying that which no longer serves us. It's real scary, though, when our known and trusted institutions and practices change and disappear. The banks, the governments, the way we treat our elderly, sometimes in some cases to do with the medical profession. But at some level, it is necessary for us to grow and evolve, not only as human beings, as individual human beings, but as contributors to all of humanity. Now, this controversial 13th sign, Ophiuchus. I've written before about it, and at this stage, it's not about to be incorporated into the traditional astrological wheel. But this energy is ether, spelled A-E-T-H-E-R. Different from the 4 elements we have. And according to Laura Eisenhower, it has the power to heal our DNA that has been damaged. I didn't know I had damaged DNA, do you? Well, there's lots of things we don't know. This fifth element connects to alchemy and our throat chakra. Use the power of words to overcome trauma and be our true selves. Sing, sing. The sun is in Ophiuchus from November the 30th until December 17th, allowing us access to this ether. So in this window of time, it's important to meditate or pray every day, be in a quiet space, consciously seeking light and healing for yourself and the rest of the planet. At some level, we are all wounded, and this time is a portal for healing at a very deep level. All we have to do is to be. More on this next time. In the meantime, you can stay healthy. Your power is in the way you care for yourself and providing an example for those you care about. Beer, the way of life that I call beer, is quite simple. It's just not easy. B is for breath, E is for exercise, E is for eat, and R is for rest. So breathe fully and completely. Fill that abdominal space. Breathe in fresh air from outdoors if you can. There is a YouTube on my channel on how to breathe. Exercise regularly. It may be simply a regular walk or a full-on physical training. Just move the body. Your health, when you reach 60 plus, is heavily influenced by how you care for yourself throughout your younger days. Eat the right food for your body and in modest proportions. Less is more. And then rest. Rest the body regularly and peacefully every night, cultivating regular sleep patterns. Sleeping refreshes the body, the mind, and the soul. Now the eclipse season is upon us. November the 30th, there is a lunar eclipse at 9 degrees Gemini. And during a lunar eclipse, the Earth comes between the sun and the moon. On the 14th of December, there is a solar eclipse at 23 degrees Sagittarius. And a solar eclipse occurs when the moon gets between the Earth and the sun. And the moon can cast a shadow over the Earth. Eclipse times are traditionally when things that have been hidden are revealed. If you have planets on the eclipse, you are likely to feel the impact more so than those who do not. And if you need some help, get in contact with me and I'll help you draw up a chart for your astrological signature. And just as an aside, it will be very interesting to see what happens to Donald Trump in mid-December, as this eclipse affects significant planets in his chart. I believe it is also the day that the Electoral College votes, the last day in which they can be cast. And in the meantime, we know there's a lot of dissension in the ranks. There's a lot of unhappiness in America and the rest of the world for that matter. December the 21st is the solstice, and I'll cover this more in the next newsletter. But just a bit of a heads up, really. We celebrate in the Southern Hemisphere the light and what it brings. In the North, it's time to reflect on the lessons learned since the Summer Solstice and be excited about the increasing light which follows. This particular solstice is very special in that it also marks the ingress of Jupiter and Saturn into the energy of Aquarius. Now, this Aquarian energy is quite different from the heaviness of Capricorn, In Aquarius is about individual freedom and care for humanity as a whole. Aquarius also represents technology and sudden surprises, amazing ideas and inspiration. Uluru, the red centre of Australia, marks the place of the 13th Stargate, energetically important on the Earth grid, and there will be a special ceremony there on the solstice. More about that next time. Now, last little thing, I have for many years purchased an astrology calendar from Michelle Finey, and I've been buying these for several years and really value the information they provide. Lovely illustrations of beautiful landscapes photographed in Australia by Australians for Australians, and she puts information about all the astrologically important events during the year. So if you were interested in that for yourself or a friend, check out her website, www.celestialinsight.com.au. That's all for now. November, lots of November nonsense. Have a good month and take care of you. I look forward to chatting with you in December.